My parents sent a group message. "We think it's best you step away for now." My aunt reacted with a thumbs up. I wrote back, "Understood. I'll respect that and step away from the family fund too." That night, I closed my contribution. At 3:11 a.m., I got a missed call from Mom. No voicemail. The next morning, I saw 14 unread texts from cousins asking what happened. "And are you okay?" I ignored them all. For the first time in years, I felt quiet for years. I've been part of what my family called the fund. Every month, we all pitched in money for emergencies or big goals. But over time, it became something else, a control system. Whoever paid most had the most say. I wasn't the richest, but I was the most consistent. My parents liked that until I disagreed about where the money should go. They wanted to buy my cousin a new car because he needs motivation. I suggested using it to cover Grandma's medical bills. That was apparently disrespectful. After that, group calls got colder. My suggestions became arguments. And soon, I wasn't being invited to family dinners. Then came that message. The step away one. My aunt, always diplomatic, said it was temporary. My mother said I was making things difficult. My father didn't say anything. So I did as they asked. I stepped away. I stopped sending money. I left the family group chat. I even unfollowed them all on social media. Silence filled the space they'd once occupied. But silence is heavy. It presses on your chest until you can't breathe. 3 weeks later, I got a text from my younger cousin Noor. "Hey, I know they're being weird, but Grandma keeps asking for you. She says she misses your visits." My chest tightened. Grandma, the one person who never treated me like a wallet with feelings. I texted Noor back. "I'll visit this weekend." She sent a heart emoji. When I arrived at Grandma's house, she was sitting on the porch in her faded blue shawl, her white hair tied neatly behind her head. "You look well," she said. "I am," I replied, sitting beside her. She poured me tea like always, the kind with more milk than water. "They told me you've been busy," she said. "That's one word for it." She nodded slowly. Families forget that sometimes the strongest ones need rest too. I smiled, holding the warm cup. "How's your health?" "Oh, I'm old, but not as tired as your mother makes me sound." That made me laugh. "She's been calling every day, complaining that you've changed." "Maybe I have," good Grandma said, her voice sharp. "Change is how we grow roots in the right soil." We sat in silence for a while. The sun dipped low, painting the world gold. "They'll regret pushing you away," she said finally. "And when they do, remember, regret makes people act kind for the wrong reasons." I didn't reply, because she was right. The next day, I got a message from Dad. "Family dinner this Sunday? Be there." No apology, no explanation, just a command. Old habits almost made me say yes. But then I remembered Grandma's words. Regret makes people act kind for the wrong reasons. So I replied, "I'll think about it." He didn't text back. Sunday came. I didn't go. I made pasta for one, watched an old movie, and let the world exist without me. But around 9 p.m., Noor called. "They're all talking about you," she said. "They said you've become arrogant, that you're showing off by staying home." Yeah, apparently peace is now an insult. I laughed softly. "How's Grandma?" "She went to bed early, but she told me to tell you, don't chase people who are walking away with your blessings." That hit deep. The following week, I focused on work. I got a raise, started saving for my own apartment, and even signed up for a cooking class. Every small thing I did for myself felt revolutionary. Then, one night, Mom showed up at my door. No warning, no call. Just ... there. I opened the door and froze. She stood holding a cake box. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. She walked in like she'd never left, setting the box on my counter. "It's your favorite. Chocolate fudge. Thanks. You look ... different, healthier," I asked, half joking. She gave a forced smile. "Maybe." We sat in silence. She finally sighed. "You've made your point." "What point?" "That you don't need us." I stared at her. That wasn't the point. I just needed peace. Peace. "You could have talked to us instead of leaving like that." "Mom, I didn't leave. You told me to step away. That was your father. You agreed?" She looked away. "You know how he is. He doesn't like being challenged, and you. I don't like seeing this family fall apart." I leaned forward. "Then stop pretending money keeps it together." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You sound just like your grandmother. It's the best compliment you've ever given me." For a second, something softened in her eyes, but just as quickly, it vanished. "We're having another meeting. About the fund. I think it's time you came back." I laughed quietly. "I'm not coming back, Mom. Don't be dramatic." "It's not drama. It's boundaries." She stood up abruptly. "You've changed. I hope so." She grabbed her purse. "When your father finds out you refused again, don't expect him to call. He hasn't in months." She paused at the door. "We raised you better than this." "No, Mom," I said softly. "You raised me to serve peace at any cost. I just learned to stop paying that price." She didn't reply, just left. When the door shut, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. That night, I took a piece of the cake, ate it slowly, and smiled. It tasted bitter. A week later, Grandma passed away. Nora called me crying. "She was asking for you," she said. I froze. My hands went numb. When, this morning, peacefully, she said, "Tell her I'm proud of her." My chest caved in. I drove to Grandma's house that same evening. The whole family was there. Everyone looked at me when I walked in. No one spoke. My mother's eyes were swollen. My father stood in the corner, arms crossed. I walked straight to Grandma's room. Her bed was surrounded by white lilies, her favorite. I knelt beside her and whispered, "You kept your promise. You left me strength." Behind me, I heard footsteps. "It was Dad. You came," he said. "Of course. She always liked you best. She loved us all. You just didn't listen." His jaw tightened. "Now's not the time." "It's exactly the time." He turned away. "There's a will reading tomorrow. Be there." "I will," I said quietly. The next morning, we all gathered in Grandma's living room. The lawyer, an older man with round glasses, adjusted his papers and cleared his throat. Everyone was tense. My mother sat beside my father, her eyes red from crying. Nor sat in the corner, clutching a handkerchief. I sat near the window, silent. The lawyer began reading. Mrs. Shaw left behind a few possessions and her savings, which she requested be divided equally among her grandchildren. There was a murmur. My older cousins exchanged glances. But then he continued, "However, there is a letter addressed specifically to," he looked up, "you." His gaze found me. My mother shifted uncomfortably. I stood and took the letter, my hands trembling slightly. The paper was soft, edges worn, her handwriting elegant as always. I unfolded it slowly, "My dear one, if you are reading this, I am gone. I know you will cry, but I hope only for a little while, because my peace is now your inheritance. You have carried burdens that were never yours to bear. You gave love without demand and learned to protect your heart without bitterness. Do not let guilt make you small again. Families are not made by money or duty, they are made by honesty. You stayed honest even when it cost you love. That is rare. That is strength. Keep walking forward even if they do not follow. With all my blessings, Dottie. I didn't realize I was crying until Nor stood up and hugged me. My father looked away. My mother's lips trembled, but she said nothing. When the lawyer finished the rest of the will, no one spoke. My father eventually stood. I'll handle the property matters, he said, voice clipped. We'll divide everything properly. I looked at him, but this time I didn't feel fear or anger, only distance. You do that? I said quietly. Just don't forget, she left me something none of you can manage. He frowned. And what's that? Peace. I walked out before he could respond. Outside, the air was warm and heavy. I sat on the porch steps, the same place I had tea with her weeks ago. The teacups were still there, one cracked, one whole. I picked up the cracked one, tracing the line where it had split. Nor came out after a while and sat beside me. They're all pretending they're fine. She said, it's weird. I smiled sadly. They don't know how to act without control. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Grandma was right about you. URTH. The strong one. Being strong is overrated, I whispered. Sometimes I just want to rest. Then rest. You've earned it. That evening, I drove home slowly, letting memories roll over me like waves. The first time Grandma taught me to cook. The way she'd hum old songs while folding laundry. The soft pat she'd give my cheek when I was sad. Every small kindness she gave me now felt like armor. At home, I placed her letter in a frame and hung it above my desk. It wasn't just a letter, it was a reminder of who I had become. A week later, my mother called. Can we talk? She asked softly. Her tone was different this time. Not commanding, not cold. ... tired. I agreed to meet her at the cafe near my apartment. When I arrived, she was already there, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. She looked older than I remembered. You came, she said. Of course. We sat quietly for a few minutes. Then she said, your father hasn't been himself since the funeral. Grief does that. He feels guilty. I raised an eyebrow. Does he? He won't say it. But he knows he pushed too hard. And you? She sighed. I did too. That caught me off guard. Mom, let me finish. She looked up, eyes glossy. I wanted everything to look perfect. A family that stays together, eats together, saves together. But somewhere I stopped listening to what that cost you. Her voice cracked. I just didn't want you to drift away. If you pushed me away, I said quietly. I know. She reached across the table, hesitating before taking my hand. Can we start over? For a moment, I didn't know what to say. My instinct wanted to protect myself. But somewhere deep down, I could hear Grandma's voice. Forgive, not for them, for your own peace. So I nodded. We can try. My mother smiled faintly, relief flickering in her eyes. Thank you. I smiled back, but it wasn't the same as before. It was gentler, smaller, the kind that comes from forgiveness, not forgetting. Months passed. Life grew steady. The fund dissolved quietly after the lawyer's audit revealed missing amounts money my uncle had been redirecting for years. The irony was sharp. All that control, all that pride, undone by greed. My parents never mentioned it, but I knew they were embarrassed. Still, our conversations became softer. Short check-ins, sometimes dinner. Not perfect, but human. Nor visited often, sometimes bringing old photos of Grandma. She'd love to see you like this, she said once. Living your own way. One evening, I found myself back at Grandma's house. It had been sold, but the new owners hadn't moved in yet. I stood outside the gate, remembering the smell of her tea. The sound of her laughter, the peace that used to wrap that home like a blanket. I whispered, I kept my promise, Dottie. I didn't let them take my peace again. The wind rustled the trees as if answering. When I turned to leave, I saw my mother standing across the street. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled, a real, small, quiet smile. I nodded back. Maybe that was enough. Not a perfect ending, but an honest one. That night I came home and made myself a cup of tea. More milk than water. It's just like Grandma's. I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. I didn't feel broken for standing alone. I felt ... sometimes. Peace doesn't come from fixing what's broken. It comes from accepting that some people can't meet you where peace lives, and loving them anyway, from afar. And as I sipped my tea, I whispered one last time into the quiet, "Thank you, Grandma, for teaching me that walking away isn't losing. It's healing." Months slipped into a soft rhythm. The noise that once ruled my life had been replaced by calm mornings filled with sunlight, evenings scented with tea and quiet music. Sometimes I'd catch myself expecting chaos, waiting for a message, a guilt call, some tug of emotional war. But it never came. Instead, there was stillness. And in that stillness, I began to meet myself again. I started gardening on my balcony. Grandma always said growing something with your hands teaches patience. My first attempt was a disaster. Wilted basil, overwatered lilies. But I kept at it. By spring, I had a small jungle of green leaves and purple flowers. Every morning, I'd water them and whisper, "We're still here." It became a ritual, almost a prayer. One Sunday morning while I was trimming the plants, Noor stopped by. She looked radiant, her laughter brighter than ever. "I got into university abroad," she said, nearly jumping with joy. I hugged her tight. Grandma would be so proud. Noor smiled, eyes misty. She'd say, "See? Blessings travel farther than you think." We both laughed. Then she handed me a folded envelope. "Mom said to give you this." 'Twas from my mother. Inside was a photo, Grandma, me, and her, sitting on the porch holding cups of tea. On the back, in her handwriting, were just 3 words. "Let's try again." I sat there staring at it for a long time. The words weren't a demand. They were a doorway. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house. It had been months since I'd seen them together. My heart raced as I parked. When my mother opened the door, her face softened. "You came." I nodded. "You asked." She smiled faintly and stepped aside. The living room looked the same, but smaller somehow. My father sat in his armchair, reading, glasses on, a newspaper in hand. When he saw me, he froze. "Hello," I said quietly. He nodded, then after a pause said, "Tea." It was such an ordinary word, but in that moment, it felt monumental. "Sure," I said. We sat together, 3 people who had once been strangers under one roof. The silence wasn't awkward. It was careful, like a fragile bridge being built plank by plank. Mom served tea. It tasted like Grandma's. Maybe it always had. "I've been thinking about the fund," my father said finally. My heart tensed, but he continued, "It was wrong what we made it into. It stopped being family and became ... control." His voice cracked slightly. "I see that now." Looked at him, surprised. "That's a big thing to admit." "Age humbles you," he muttered. "Losing your mother humbles you more." He took a deep breath. "I can't change what happened, but I can do better now." For the first time, I saw the man behind the pride. Not perfect, but trying. "That's all any of us can do," I said. My mother reached out and placed her hand over mine. "We want you around," she said softly. "Not for money. For you." I smiled. "Then let's start there." From that day, Our relationship began to heal in small ways. Not with grand gestures, but with consistency. A shared dinner once a week. A phone call just to ask how my plants were doing. Old recipes exchanged. Laughter returning like sunlight after rain. One evening, we sat together watching old home videos. Grandma's voice echoed through the room, singing an old lullaby while I danced clumsily as a child. My father chuckled. "She spoiled you." "She saved me," I whispered. Mom nodded, wiping her eyes. She saved all of us in her way. Time moved on, gentle and forgiving. Noor left for university, sending photos of snow and crowded libraries. "You'd love it here," she'd text. "It's quiet, like you." My parents started volunteering at a local shelter, their way of giving without control. And me. I finally moved into my own apartment, a small place filled with books, plants, and sunlight. Every morning, I'd light a candle beside Grandma's framed letter. It reminded me of how far we'd come, not just me, but all of us. Healing, I'd learned, isn't loud. It's not a cinematic apology or a tearful reunion. It's quiet meals, shared laughter, slow forgiveness. And the courage to keep showing up even when it's hard. One evening, while sipping tea on my balcony, I saw the first star appear in the sky. I thought of Grandma, of her shawl fluttering in the wind, her smile soft but unshakable. "You were right," I whispered. "Peace isn't given. It's grown." And in that moment, I realized something simple yet profound. Sometimes family isn't who understands you first, it's who tries again. Even after they failed, the night deepened, the air cool and fragrant. I took one last sip of tea and smiled. The past no longer hurt. It had simply become part of the story, one that began with loss, bloomed into strength, and ended, as Grandma always promised, in peace.